Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum friends. Welcome back to United Verse. We are back with the latest news coming in, and it's none other than Ekitike. My name is Bilal. You're watching the United Verse. Please do subscribe. Please do press the like button, guys. It's going to be an interesting talk today because we have been hearing lots of news regarding Gyökeres as well as Osimhen. There is a new name which has just come in, and it's none other than Ekitike, who was linked to United before the transfer window. We did hear that Ruben Amorim was interested in Ekitike, and you know what? The thing is, with this player, I think there is some sort of, you could say, a little bit, the fan base, it's not decided in terms of would they really want this kind of player? Does he suits Amorim's system? Now we're going to discuss about what kind of player he is, but before we do that, we're going to go straight into the news in terms of what has been reported, and that is what we are going to do. So as you can see on your screen, it says exclusive: Manchester United have now officially entered the race for Ekitike. Manchester United made contact with Frankfurt within the last 48 hours, expressed concrete interest. Now this is something which you have to watch carefully. Expressed concrete interest. It's not something that you pick up the phone, you dial the number, and you speak to the other side saying that, you know what, we're just inquiring, we just want to know what do you think if we were interested in him, would you be willing to sell him? No such thing as of that. What a concrete interest means is we are seriously interested, we want to talk to you as well as to the player and his representative. We do know that you have got a release clause on him, and that figure is something that we would want to discuss about. We would like to talk about that figure. Now that means United have got something on the Gyökeres end as well as on the Osimhen end. We're going to discuss that a little bit later into this episode, but before we do that, we're going to talk about Ekitike. It goes on to say, and they gathered all the relevant information. Now, gathering all the relevant information, what do you mean by that? I think when you tend to ask for relevant information, it means how many games did he play? They would certainly be asking how many games did he miss? They would be asking for his medical history as well. Now, I do not know if the clubs are basically into that kind of thing where you kind of exchange the player's data, that if he has got an injury, you would want to look into that injury. If he has got no injury or something of that sort, then everything is perfect, everything is okay. There is no something as of negative in terms of to acquire the player, and then you would be thinking, you know what, oh, we found out something and this is something that wasn't told us beforehand. So it's a way of dealing with a club who is selling. So that is what Manchester United would have been doing. Liverpool Chelsea remain in the race, and now Manchester United have just entered into that race. The price is quoted 100 million euros, and it has been reported by none other than Platigol. Now we're going to discuss a little bit into the detail about this deal. Now, as far as I know, that the fan base, they are 70% tilting towards Gyökeres, whereas the rest of them, they would want Osimhen. Now, we did discuss about Gyökeres and Osimhen that the case is that United, they need to have a striker who is of a mature age. When you talk about mature age, you're talking about the age of 26, 27, because United have already taken the route where they went in with a young striker such as Højlund, and last season they went in for Zirkzee. Now, both of those players who are of pretty young age of 21, 22 and 23, they didn't get the results that they were expecting. They were expecting that Højlund would come in and straight away lead the lineup and he would be scoring 20 plus goals. Same was expected from Zirkzee as well, but we did know that Zirkzee was not an out and out number 9. He is a different profile striker. He's not even a striker, he's more of a number 10 and that hybrid number 8. He cannot play on the wing, he cannot play as a sole striker. He's a different kind of a player, but if you want to use him as a number 9, you can tend to use him. But we have seen him play for Manchester United. He's not strong as a number 9 would be, as you expect a number 9 should be. But keeping that in context, that Højlund and Zirkzee have failed to make that position permanent. When you discuss or you kind of analyze those players, you tend to think that if you take a similar route, which is now looking likely that if Ekitike is the player that is being wanted by Manchester United, he's of that similar age. And why would Manchester United would want to go once again on that route? Now we do know that United wanted Delap, and for some reason Delap didn't choose Manchester United, so he was the number one target for Manchester United. He could say that Jason Wilcox was the one who was really interested in to bring in this guy Delap, but Delap for some reason opted for Chelsea. So then that means they were back to square one. The targets were once again being looked at, analyzed, and there was, you could say, a deep discussion in the whole club that what kind of striker should they go for. Should they opt for an experienced striker? Now, when you talk about experience, I think there is something happening in regards to that none of the players that have been linked to us are Premier League experienced, because you do remember I've told you that the board, the way they are operating in a safe manner. They want some sort of insurances in the context of that if they go in for a player, they put in their money, they don't want it to go to waste. Now, if you look at the way they have acquired Cunha, it's a case of that he did perform well for Wolves, even though they were fighting for relegation, but he did play good in the Premier League. He turned out to be pretty good in terms of normally those kind of teams do not tend to produce those kind of players, and he was the main man in Wolves. He was the one who was the pure score threat. Even when he came and played at Old Trafford, he was the guy to watch. He could turn, he had the strength, he could do all that stuff, and everybody was in awe that if we had that sort of player in our playing squad, United results would have been different. And that is the reason why United have completely gone in for him. And you can see the kind of player that they are trying to get. So they need to have that Premier League experience. Now, if you look at Osimhen, he hasn't got any Premier League experience. He has got that European experience. He has played in Serie A. He has won the title for Napoli. And then he went to Galatasaray and he really had a good season. So he can score goals. Then when you come to Gyökeres just played in Portugal. Other than that, he has played in the English lower leagues for Coventry and for any, I think he also played for some other club as well. But he hasn't played in the top flight, and that is what is concerning. That is the reason why Arsenal or Manchester United, they don't want to spend more than 60 million. They just want to make sure that they don't overspend. Let's say in case if Gyökeres comes in, he isn't able to handle the Premier League pace. He cannot achieve those targets which United and Arsenal pay 50 or 60 million for. Then they need to look at his contract. They don't want to overpay him. They want to make sure that if he doesn't come good, they would be able to get rid of him. They would be able to sell him to any other European counterpart, maybe to Germany, maybe to Spanish league or whatever. Now, we do know that Barcelona were also linked to Gyökeres, but for some reason they said, you know what, we have Lewandowski, even though Lewandowski is what, 100-something years old. I don't know how much legs does he has got in the future. Can he play for 3 more seasons? I don't think so. But it was quite concerning that they didn't go in for Gyökeres. Although if you look at that price bracket, they could have gone, but they still have that financial crisis as well. But you keep that in context and you tend to think that nobody is interested in Gyökeres other than the Premier League. And although you would tend to think that Borussia Dortmund or maybe Bayer Leverkusen, they would go in for a player like him. Or maybe even in Syria, the likes of Juventus or Inter Milan, they would go in for him. But for some reason, we have seen that the interest is there, but not something you could say that a club has bid in for him, such as Arsenal and Manchester United. Because Arsenal and Manchester United, they have actually bid in for Gyökeres, and it looks like it's a case, it's not a bid, it's just, the thing is they're just presenting it to Sporting Lisbon that this is what we're interested in to give you for Gyökeres. And that is where Sporting Lisbon went, no, he has scored a lot of goals for us. This guy is premium player right now in the transfer market. If you want him, you have to pay top dollar for him. And that is the reason why Manchester United and Arsenal are not overcommitting to spend that much. I was hearing another thing about this was that maybe the clubs are thinking that still a long way till August, and they want to see if Sporting Lisbon would want to lower their valuation. But I think it's a long game, because if we would follow that path, then what's going to happen is somebody will get Osimhen, somebody will get Ekitike, somebody will get all those options that you have currently right now. So what Manchester United are doing right now is they're looking at this chessboard and they're thinking, you know what? This striker has got this strength and he has got this weakness. This striker has got this strength and he has got this weakness. And then they are trying to analyze it and they are trying to cross-check them to see what works for Manchester United. And I'm sure they would be discussing this with Amorim as well, in order to say, okay, let's say your number one target is Gyökeres. But in case if you don't get Gyökeres, because remember they were going in for Delap and Gyökeres was nowhere near in the contention. As soon as Delap opted for Chelsea, that is when Gyökeres' name started to link with Manchester United. Now, if Gyökeres is not gettable by United, then United, Jason Wilcox, Umar Berrada will go to Amorim and say, you know what, Sporting are not willing to play ball with us. So in that case, in that scenario, we need to come up with something in case if you're not able to get him. So from that perspective, Amorim will go back onto his drawing board and think what works for his system. Because remember, Amorim has said one thing, and he has been pretty much, you could say, not stubborn, but you could use another word for it. You could say that he is pretty much loyal to what he believes in. He thinks that the system is a system which will give him result, which will give him a trophy, which will give him the success that he's looking for, because that worked at Sporting Lisbon, and he believes that system can be implemented here at United as well, and through that system United can get better. In order to get that system to work, he needs those players. Now he could think, okay, this is the real world. You go for a target, you sometimes don't get them, and if you're not able to get them, then what else is there that you can get into the squad and make it work with that system that you believe in and get the result that you're looking for? From that perspective, I think, and I've started to believe into this, I think he doesn't want Osimhen. I think Osimhen for him is a kind of player who is more of a poacher, and he's not looking for someone who's a poacher. He is looking for something different. What he's looking for is a guy who's a striker who can bring in that quality in himself where he can pull those defenders into his zone. So let's say it's Gyökeres, and if you look at Gyökeres, what Gyökeres tends to do is, it's not that he drops in deep. What Gyökeres tends to do is, he asks for the ball. Once he gets the ball, then what he tends to do is, he tends to pull in the opposition players toward his direction. And when you see that, he is trying to get that space where the other players of his team can get into. So whenever you see that, you tend to see that Amorim wants to create that space where basically he can use that space to his advantage. And that is the reason why he's solely focused on Gyökeres. It's not that he needs goals from Gyökeres, he also needs other things from Gyökeres. And that is the reason why he has brought in Cunha, because Cunha can do that for him. I think if you put Cunha in that number 9, I don't think so he would be any different if he would be playing in that number 10 position. So he needs those kind of players who would bring that pressure to themselves, and they have got the quality to bring in their teammates into the gameplay and overcrowd that area. Not overcrowd area just to put players into that zone. No, to create something. And then when you create something, you can always have a chance to get a goal. And I think that's what Amorim is trying to do. Now, when you tend to think from that perspective, I think Gyökeres is undisputedly the number one target for Amorim. But let's say, for the sake of argument, that he doesn't get Gyökeres, who does he go for? And that is where I think the discussion with the board would have taken place, specifically Wilcox, and they would have said, you know what, the qualities that you're looking for in Gyökeres, it's a case of if we do not get Gyökeres, and let's say for argument's sake, Gyökeres is much more closer to Arsenal because Gyökeres representatives, another story came out that for some reason his agent isn't the same who basically agreed with the club about that clause. That person has left the club, and there's another person now in his position who is basically has said that it wasn't agreed with me. That is where the club says now that, listen, the guy who apparently negotiated that with you, he's not anymore at the club. So that is nullified. There is no condition, there is no agreement, and we are basically operating on an open contract. So it's us who are going to decide upon your valuation. And that is where the confusion comes from, that basically what's happening at Sporting Lisbon between Gyökeres and the board is a case of there will be some sort of an agreement. And I think that agreement is purely going to be on the basis of that the club will say, listen, you're overplayed and we will think for the best of the club. So in that case, if let's say a club comes in and say they're offering us more than what United are offering or Arsenal are offering, we're going to sell you to that club. So that is the thing where Manchester United will think about that, okay, there is something happening at Sporting Lisbon. We do not know what will be the outcome, but we are not willing to pay over the odds for that player. So in that case, they're going to plan B. And the plan B is to find the similar features what Gyökeres has in other player and try to get that player if they can get him for cheap. Now that is where the concern comes in. I mean, Frankfurt have clearly put 100 million euros for the release clause. I don't think so Frankfurt are expecting any club to come in with 100 million euros, because if Arsenal and Manchester United are struggling to pay over 60 million for a player who's mature enough, who's scoring 50 plus goals for his club, such as Gyökeres, I don't think so they would be paying 100 million euros for Ekitike. What's going to happen is there are two things that can happen. The first thing is that Manchester United, they would have called into Frankfurt and would have said, we know that you have put 100 million euros as a release clause, but we're not going to pay that. Is there some way we can work around that figure? If not, if you're not willing to come lower, because there is a case of Liverpool and Chelsea around, and there might be a case of if Frankfurt lower the fee, then Liverpool Chelsea certainly will be in the race as well. I do not think that Liverpool would be in for Ekitike because they've signed Wirtz. They spent 150 million euros, so I don't think so Liverpool will be in the race anymore. As for Chelsea, they might be in the race for Ekitike. And from that perspective, Manchester United could say to Frankfurt that, listen, you know what? We have got some players on our books which we don't want anymore, such as the likes of Antony, Jadon Sancho, and how about if we give you a player plus cash? Would that work? And I'm sure they would have offered something like that, because if they haven't, I think United know that they haven't got 100 million euros, and Frankfurt, they know that there are many clubs who are interested in Ekitike, and that is the thing which comes into play, that if there are other clubs who are interested and you haven't got the money, then how can you make this deal possible? The only way around it is if you've got your own players to give in for exchange. So let's say if United go to Frankfurt and say, we'll pay you 50 million euros, and they would package it in a manner that they would pay a lot in the case of beforehand. Let's say they pay 30 million in the first year and the rest they can pay in the second year. And from that perspective, they would say to Frankfurt, how about we give you 50 million euros plus Antony or plus Sancho. But we do know that Sancho is in a very big wage. Frankfurt cannot afford that wage. So the question comes in, who's the other player who would want to play for Frankfurt? I can only think of Antony. And other than Antony, I can't think of any other player. And Anthony, would he be open to a move to Frankfurt? Mm, I think I think it's a question of what is he looking for. If he's looking for game time, if he's looking for some importance or for some significance or for some other experience, then Frankfurt can work for him. But everything depends on what kind of wage does he agree upon with the club. Let's say if United do not go in for this route where they're offering money plus in exchange for a player, then what can happen is United can go in and say, how about if you're interested in Højlund or Zirkzee? That is something that United can work with. Because remember, United are not going to get rid of Zirkzee and Højlund altogether. They will keep one of those two. So if they keep one of those two, so that means there won't be room for the other one. So that means one from Højlund or Zirkzee will leave the club. So there might be a case of that Frankfurt could work with this deal. Let's say Manchester United say, we're going to offer you 50 million and we're going to give you Højlund as well. Frankfurt would look at that deal and think, you know what? This is something we can work with, because if Højlund plays with us and let's say we get him back to his best form and he scored a lot of goals for us, then we can resell him in 1 or 2 years' time for a much more larger profit. And that is something that they will be thinking about if you offer a player like Højlund. So United, I think they are trying to do something in order to get something for Amorim. Amorim, on the other hand, if you would ask me, he would say, I want Gyökeres. I wouldn't want anything other than Gyökeres. But the problem with Gyökeres is, I think Sporting Lisbon have realized that they've got a player on their hands, and this is the best moment to really cash in for that kind of a player. Because remember, guys, if your player scores against Manchester City, if he scores against those top European clubs, and he's giving in those kind of performances, any other club, even let's say if Gyökeres was playing for Manchester United and Gyökeres was performing that good, how much you would be selling him for? Not for 60 million euros, I bet. I wouldn't, and I know that you guys wouldn't as well. So the whole thing works in a context of Sporting Lisbon have decided that they're not going to sell him less than 80 million euros, period. They're not going to sell him anything less of 80 million euros. And if that is the case, and if that is the situation, then I think Manchester United are going to struggle to find that 80 million euros until and unless they're able to sell the likes of Rashford, Anthony, Sancho, Casemiro, Garnacho, and they bring in around 100, 120 million. If they can do that, that's the only way I can see they are going to go in for Gyökeres. Otherwise, I can't see United spending 80 million euros on Gyökeres. That's what I think. As for if you would ask me from these three, who would I go for? My number one pick would be Osimhen. And for some reason, I believe that Osimhen can do good for United. But because Amorim is looking for something else, and the reason Osimhen left Napoli, the reason his relationship was broken with Napoli was due to because he didn't want it to adapt to Antonio Conte's style. He didn't want it to adapt to another tactical manner. He just wants to be in that box. He just wants to operate in that box. He's a poacher. His natural ability is to score goals. And that is what you want from your number 9, from a proper number 9. I think Osimhen is a player who would definitely suit the likes of Barcelona. Osimhen is a type of player who would for sure suit the likes of Real Madrid. I think he would be a gem for Bayern Munich. For these three teams, Osimhen is going to be a world-class player. But other than that, if you ask me if Osimhen was playing for Arsenal, I think he would struggle. If he was playing for Liverpool, I don't think so he would struggle, but the problem would be with the injuries. And I think if you can work around with his injuries, then he is one hell of a player. So for me, I would go Osimhen on number 1. And then in number 2, this is the surprise which is going to hit you. I think it would be Ekitike. I wouldn't go for Gyökeres. The reason I wouldn't go for Gyökeres is due to the fact that it's not that he's not good. He is good, but for some reason I tend to believe that the thing which usually works in one club doesn't mean that it's going to work in another club. We do know, we have seen so many cases, so many evidence that a player who's playing good for one club never tends to be good for another club, unless you're an exceptional player. I totally believe that the dynamics, the circumstances are different in one club to another one, especially if you're playing in different kind of league. Portuguese league is not what Premier League is. And I remember Erik ten Hag when he came from Ajax to Manchester United, and I thought that his Ajax team was so good because they performed so well in the Champions League, the semi-final. I thought, we're getting a really good manager, and I think he was a very, very good coach. But the problem with Erik ten Hag was, I think he was taken back with the Premier League because he didn't expect it to be this physical, this high-paced game where you tend to see lower teams who are coming at you as if it's a Champions League final. I don't think so he was expecting that, and it took him by surprise. And that is the reason he was struggling to adapt to this new system. Not so many managers are able to do what others can. Pep Guardiola is an exceptional case. Klopp is an exceptional case. Their school of thought, their methods, their manner of the way the football should be played is very different. And those managers or those coaches, they tend to produce in different kind of varieties. If you would ask Pep Guardiola to put in a system different to what formation or different to whatever characteristics he has got in his squad, he will have the same principles, but he will change the system. He will have the same principles, he will change the players in that formation. And that is what the quality is different from the other managers to managers such as Pep Guardiola or Klopp. Now with Amorim, it's a case of what he's asking, what he's looking in his number 9. Gyökeres, I'm not sure about him to adapt in Premier League. He has scored in European games, he has scored goals in Champions League, he has scored goals in very good positions, from very good positions. But I do not know, I cannot be sure of that he can produce the same in the Premier League. Let's say if United come up with 70 million or 80 million, whatever Sporting Lisbon are looking for, and if United pay that amount of money, or if they would agree to pay that kind of amount of money, even if it's scheduled, if it's paid in installments, the problem comes in, what if Gyökeres isn't able to perform? You could say the same for Osimhen as well. You could say the same for Ekitike as well. But for me, the concern is, Gyökeres is what, 27 years of age? Ekitike is what, 22, 23 years of age? He's still got plenty of years ahead of him. And I can't see we will be able to recoup that 80 million if Gyökeres doesn't get 20 plus goals. You won't be able to recover that money. So whatever you pay to Sporting Lisbon, 80 million, 70 million, that'll be gone. And then you will have him on a big wage because it's his last contract. So I think that is what also concerning United board. They have got a figure in their head that this is the max we're going to pay for a player such as this profile. We're not going to go any more than this figure, which is a good thing. I think it's a good thing because you have to change the way you approach. Listen, we do know that how important Gyökeres is to Manchester United. I'm not disagreeing on that. I do understand. But for 80 million euros, I don't think so. I would rather bring in 2 players of that price. And I would, okay, we failed with Højlund, we failed with Zirkzee. I take that. But with Højlund, no, who told them to go and spend 70, 80 million on Højlund? I wouldn't. I would have said, you know what, we're not going to pay you more than 35 million. That's it. You're going to take it? Okay. If you don't, we're going to go and see what other striker is there in the market. I think that should have been the case with Højlund, but United didn't operate in that manner, and you can see what it has resulted in. And I think you should spend your money wisely, because imagine the financial problems we are facing right now in the transfer market. What if another one or two big transfer moves turn out to be bad? Imagine where you're going to be in the next position where you would want to go into transfer market and you would like a player and you would want to have that player, but you won't have the money. And you're much, much more in a worse situation than what you're in right now. So that is the reason I think United need to be careful in terms of what they actually want and what they have to give in order to have that kind of player. You could say that Gyökeres would be the perfect number 9 that United can have, but there is always a price for that, what you want. Now, if that price comes with trouble, when I say trouble, what I mean to say is, what if Gyökeres isn't able to produce goods as he did in Sporting Lisbon? It's going to be back to the drawing board. And that is where the alarm bells will start ringing, that they went in again in the transfer market and they spent 80 million euros on a so-called hot striker in the transfer market, and they got him, but he wasn't able to produce, and he was of a mature age as well. So that argument will go out the window as well. So you need to be careful in what you're going for. Let's say if you get Ekitike for 40 million or 50 million euros, I'm all for it. And I think Ekitike is better than Zirkzee and Højlund. That's what I truly believe in. He's got the height, he's got the stature, although he's pretty thin. But if he comes to Premier League, he can build up that muscle, and I'm sure he can produce good. I think he's much better than Delap. If you look the way he plays, he's technically good. He's very, very good. Him, Mbuemo, and Cunha are going to be a very formidable force in terms of attacking manner. They will go and tend to have that kind of aura about them where they would play with freedom. They can try to create something. They can try to have a go at the other team's goal. That is what they can do. So from that perspective, I think Ekitike would be my number 2 choice. Gyökeres would be my number 3rd. And I think for you guys, it might be the opposite way. It would be Gyökeres number 1, Osimhen number 2, and Ekitike number 3. But I would go for Osimhen number 1 because he is for sure going to get you those 20 plus goals, although he won't give you what Amorim asks of his number 9. So from that perspective, I think Osimhen is going to be hard. So between Ekitike and Gyökeres, if you can get Ekitike for 50 million, then I would go for Ekitike. But if Gyökeres is 80 million, that's a lot of money. I would be very concerned. If Gyökeres comes in for 80 million, I'll be concerned. As much as he is prolific, he's pretty good in terms of scoring goals, I don't know how will the season go. I mean, I would want him to have a good season, to have the best of the season that he has ever had in his career. That's what I would want ideally, but I know in real life things are not what you want. I mean, who would have imagined that Sir Alex Ferguson will retire, and since then we won't be able to get a shot at the Premier League title? Never in my wildest dreams I would have thought about that. I do remember the day when it was announced that he will be leaving, and that's it. It's his last season, and he won't be in the United dugout anymore. It'll be a new man, a new manager, and that's where I went and thought for a week that, okay, life moves on. Nothing is permanent, and I'm sure that when Alex Ferguson came in, it would have been a similar kind of thing, because we're so much used to Sir Alex Ferguson. We're so much used to that success, but it's time, because everything has a timing, and it's not that one person is the one who guarantees you the success. There are other managers, there are other people as well, other personalities who can come into United and they can win as well. But it is what it is. So in reality, it hits you hard. You tend to think ideally that we'll be able to do this, we will be able to spend this much in the transfer market, we'll get world-class players, we'll get so-and-so player, it will help us, we'll be able to get our objectives, and then we will be on the top of the ladder where we'll be winning league titles, we'll be winning Champions League. But I think wanting is something and having is something. So from that perspective, I don't think so Gyökeres would be a good deal for United if he's costing 80 million euros. I don't know what you guys think. Please do drop in your comments in the comment section. What do you think of that? If Gyökeres is 80 million euros, would you be willing to pay that much money for him? That is my question. If it is, then okay. But if he isn't, then what do you think should United do? What should Amorim do? What should Vivell or Wilcox should do? Should they go for in the likes of Ekitike or Osimhen? So please do let me know in the comments. Now, there is also some other news as well where it has been, I think no updates have come in for Mbuemo. We are waiting for some updates on Mbuemo because for some reason everything has shifted to Gyökeres, and from Gyökeres it has come back to Ekitike. Before it was Osimhen, and for some reason Mbuemo has just got off from the screen. Nobody is reporting about him. Maybe tomorrow is the day when we'll be hearing something about Mbuemo, and hopefully we'll be getting more updates on that scenario. So once again, guys, this is what we have in for today. Ekitike is the latest name that has been linked with Manchester United. Manchester United have made contact with Frankfurt within the last 48 hours, expressed concrete interest, gathered all the relevant information, and they are now the latest club in the race for Ekitike. 100 million euros. Will United pay 100 million euros? Let's see. So once again, guys, please do subscribe. Please do press the like button as well. And please do follow us on Twitter. Our Twitter address is the United Verse, MUFC. So I'll see you tomorrow once again